This series is inspired by the Minecraft speedrunning Megadog. Check it out in the description down below. Today's episode is all about Bastions. There is a lot to cover and this is probably going to be the longest video in this series, so to help you navigate it, I've put timestamps in the description. Also, if you're a beginner, I'd recommend you watch the other videos in this series before moving on to Bastions. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So, you've entered the Nether. Your first priority is to find a Bastion. First, you should already have your entity distance to 500, but if it's not there for some reason, change that when you enter. Next, change your render distance based on how hard you want to reset on Bastion distance. The higher it is, the more Bastions you'll play, but the slower they'll be. Most people probably use 18 to 20, but you can set it to whatever you think is best for you. Now, when you load into the Nether, immediately pause. Make sure you're looking at this number here on your F3 screen the entire time. It'll slowly go up like this, which is normal, but when it jumps by about 30 or more at the same time, you've just loaded in a Bastion. To find it, lower to 30 FOV and look around. Keep a close eye on this number. When it's over 30 or so, you have a Bastion in that direction. If you didn't pause upon entering the Nether, or for some reason don't know if there's a Bastion in your render distance, you can use this other trick. Look at these two numbers and add them together. If they're about the same as your big E value, like here, there's no Bastion. If they're significantly higher, like here, then there is a Bastion. Anyway, once you've found the direction of the Bastion, just go that way, pretty basic. Terrain management is something that you'll learn to get good at, but for now I'll just give a tip for when you need to dig through a wall. Instead of strip mining, you can build a setup either like this or like this, then sprint, right click and left click the boat at the same time. As long as you don't hit any blocks, this should put you into crawl mode. For more info, check out K4's video in the description. Anyway, now you're at your Bastion. There are 4 types: bridge, housing, stables, and treasure. Recognizing them can be tricky if they're buried, but if they're fully exposed or if you're at certain parts, then it's very easy. This is treasure. It's very different to every Bastion. The cube here is the only part of a Bastion which is smooth like this, from what I've heard. The bridge with the 2 gold blocks is very recognizable, and the rampart chests are formed differently to all the other Bastions. Next is bridge. The entire middle area here is unique. The lava columns are very unique. From the back it has a very recognizable shape, and from the front you can see the chalice, which is the defining feature of bridge. Housing and stables are the most similar in my opinion, as they have the same general shape. Some ramparts with a big bottom section in front. Housing only has 2 ramparts, while stables has 3. Housing's right, or left depending on which way you're looking, is always a triple chest. Stables has 2 places to go below the triple chest, while housing only has 1. Housing has a middle chest, while stables has this chest and 2 columns. There are more differences that I could go through, but you can explore those yourself if you want, and these should be enough to guide you anyway. Before we move on to the routing, I'll just mention what you're expecting from Bastions. First and most importantly, pearls. I would say at least 20 or so is preferable. There are a ton of places to use pearls during the run, and the more the better honestly. Players going for a high roll will leave on 16 or so though. Really, you can go as low as 10 or 11, but it'll slow the rest of your run down a lot and adds a luck factor with the eyes. Next, obsidian. At least 10 is mandatory and 20 is very good. Whether or not you wait for 20 obsidian is a decision that's made in the moment based on your piglin count, your obsidian count, and how many trades you have left. Forcing extra chests is a good idea for 20 obsidian, but trying to get it from single chests is risky and is often a time loss. Next, explosives. You need 4 of these. These can be in the form of beds, where 12 string is a bed, anchors, where 4 glowstone and 6 crying obsidian is an anchor, or a mix of both. Again, the more the better, but if you have everything else, add 4 explosives. Leaving now is always correct unless you're not confident with your one cycling. Finally, fire resistance. The more the better, as with everything, but if you have only one and you use it wisely, you'll generally be fine. Now onto the routing. There's a lot to learn in Bastions, but it's important that you know the basics, and it's something that's definitely worth learning. We're going to start with bridge. The middle area of bridge, including the chalice, always generates in exactly the same way. The major differences in routing are with the ramparts. There are 2, left and right, and they can either be a triple chest, which is good, or a single chest, which is not so good. Your route will vary a lot depending on this. Either way, to start off, make your way to chalice, which is this massive pile of gold. You should get at least 10 gold blocks, and as a beginner you can just get all of them, but just know that you're rarely going to use more than 12 or so. If you have a TNT, you can set it up like this or this to blow up the chalice instead. Next, take a look at your Bastion. If it's exposed, you'll be able to tell very easily whether your ramparts are single or triple chests. Take a look at these examples. If it's buried, you won't be able to tell which sides are which is fine for now. Make your way up to this area and check whether the right rampart is a triple chest. You can break a block like this to check. If you see the triple chest, great. Otherwise, it's a single chest. I'll proceed as though it's a triple chest, and I'll come back to this point for more routes later if it's not. The right triple route is very simple. Make this hole and anger piglins by placing and breaking a gold block. Then just throw your gold in like this to lure them. Once they're all in, you can loot the chests. If you're low on obsidian, you can go to the other side for more chests. To get your items, you can either dig 2 like this, or place a gravel and dig 1 like this. Now, what if the right rampart is a single chest? In this case, you can break these 3 blocks and go to the other rampart. You'll be able to tell from here whether it's a triple or single chest. If there's basalt up here, it's a triple chest, and if there isn't, it's a single chest. Now the question of what to do here is a bit ambiguous. There are 2 basic routes that you can use. In both cases, you can build a bridge like this, anger piglins, then build a hole either here for triple chest or here for single chests. However, especially for single chest, it's a good idea to do a more advanced route for more piglins. The one that I was linked when I asked what the best one was is this one here. If, from the start, you think there's a chance you'll have to do this route and you don't have blocks, you should make a golden pickaxe and get some fast netherrack first. If you're above here, you can just both down and build the setup. If there are hoglins in the way, you can do this. If you don't have a lava bucket, you should just resort to the other route I showed you. You won't get the pigs from the middle area if you do this. This route here also works for triple chests and gives you more piglins, but it requires more setup and is a bit less useful, I would say. Now that's basically it for bridge bastions. As with all the bastions, you should practice these routes, especially the left rampart one, before going for them in runs. Before moving on, just one more thing about bridge. To get to a left single chest if it's buried, you can do this. For a right single chest, you can do this. There's another chest up here that always spawns called the lodestone chest, as it always has a lodestone. It cannot contain obsidian, making it a lot less useful relative to other chests, but if you ever need iron or something like that, it's a good idea to check it. Now, moving on to the next bastion, housing. The way housing works is that there are 9 gold blocks here 100% of the time. Alongside these, there are many other backups that I'll go through later. Unfortunately, there aren't many piglins in this area, so for housing to be fast, we need to get some piglins from another part of the bastion. This is typically done from the top, middle, or bottom area over here. There are 3 main routes for housing, but they only differ in where they start. I'll start with top-down housing. Something to know about housing is that the right rampart is always a triple chest like this. The other rampart could be, or it could also not. Top-down starts at this right triple chest. There are a few variations on how to start off. If you have gold armor, I would recommend blocking yourself in here and looting the double chests. Then you can break the single chest to anger all the piglins. Sometimes you won't be able to easily block yourself in which case you can break a single chest or just punch a guy if you think it's too risky. Anyway, once you've somehow angered the piglins, head down here. You will probably tank a few hits in the process, so be careful about your health. Then block yourself into this little area like this. There are 3 hidden gold blocks that I recommend you get. You can do something like this. Anyway, from here there are a few ways of getting into the gold blocks optimally. If you can dig this block and route the blocks like this. Otherwise, you can block yourself into this little hole and do this. Once you have all your gold trading, you can overlap a few things. The most important thing is to loot chests. This chest is the easiest to access and there's a good chance for obsidian. Once you've done that, you can sort your inventory, craft stuff, or anything else you think needs doing. Once you have everything you need, you can get extra chests you need up here. There's also a middle chest that you can get. To leave, you can exit through the back like this or at any of the holes in the bastion. Or you can just go to the top. Now that's only the first of the routes, but don't worry, the other two are very similar. First, mid-down. This route is literally exactly the same, except that instead of starting at the top, you start in the middle here. I would recommend doing this if you're starting on top of the bottom section here. You definitely want to get the middle blocks in this case, as without them you won't get many piglins at all. Third and finally, there's the manhunt route. For this route, you start at the middle chest at the bottom here. To start off, figure out where the ramparts are. If your bastion is open, it'll be super obvious, but if it's not, then you can look at the pattern in the middle to figure it out. Sometimes you'll get two nether wart lines like this. In this case, follow this nether wart towards the rampart. If this isn't the pattern you see, then you can look at the shape of the blackstone. You'll see it forms a bit of a V shape like this, just go towards the point of the V. Anyway, now you can break the middle chest. Usually you'll be able to, but if there are too many piglins on you, you might just have to punch a piglin and run. After doing this, you can toggle to hard mode to get a few more piglins to fall, but make sure not to tank any hits while you're on hard. You might only be on it for a second or two, and that's okay. Anyway, head to the ramparts. Block this section off using fire, lava, or blocks so that the piglins don't get stuck there. You should see a double chest. This is the same double chest from the top down section. Block yourself in if you think there are close piglins, then mine up into this section. Let the piglins follow you, and the rest is the same as the other routes. When doing manhunt, people generally don't get the 3 middle gold blocks, but you can get them if you want by towering up like this. Before moving on, just a few more things. There are many backup blocks in housing, and you can find them like this. Generally, you won't need them though. Now that should be everything about housing. Now we can move on to the next bastion, treasure. Treasure looks like this and is the only bastion where you definitely 100% only need to learn one route to route it properly. Here's how it looks. First is the cube. This section is very big and has an enormous pile of gold at the bottom. It also has the infamous treasure spawner. While it contains a lot of gold, this section is pretty slow and hard to route, and it's not worth learning how to do lower treasure in any scenario. The second section is the bridge with these 2 gold blocks. Easy enough. The third section is the best part, which is the ramparts. They generate differently to every other bastion's ramparts and have a lot of less obvious gold. To start off, you generally want to start at the bridge next to this gold block. If you don't have gold armor, you can block yourself in like this. First, mine the gold block. Then jump over to this one and quickly block yourself like this. Craft one of the gold blocks into gold and leave the other as a gold block. Run up the ramparts and make sure to mine the specific blocks in this clip as they are common piglin choke points for some reason. Once you're up here, you can place and break the gold block to aggro more guys. Make sure you immediately throw some gold on the ground so that the pigs get distracted momentarily. Mine through this area here. If it's exposed, build a bridge. If it's buried, mine these 4 blocks. Make sure you continuously throw gold to distract these guys. Once you're done, run up to this area, make a hole like this, and throw your gold. This is called the boomer route. Now this requires some practice, and there are safer ways of doing this which you can experiment with yourself. There is another route that could be worth learning though, which is a bit different that you can mess around with as well. It's called the T-Wags route and it looks like this. Once you get up the stairs, block yourself in over here. Then punch a piglin or break the gold block. Then mine these 3 blocks and throw a few pieces of gold for distraction. Then break these 2 blocks, place these 2 blocks, and make a hole on the other side like this. Both this and boomer route are very good, and it's up to you which one you prefer doing. For more advanced info on this route, check out T-Wags' video, linked in the description. Now, the rest of the route looks basically the same either way, with the only difference being your starting rampart. I'm going to play as if I did the boomer route for this example. On either side, there's this area, and there are 5 potential gold blocks that can spawn here. They each have a 70% chance of generating. Once you get all these gold blocks and throw them to the piglins, you can go to the other side and do exactly the same thing. Once you have those, come back to your hole and throw the gold down. It's as simple as that. Now for a bit more info, there are 4 potential extra gold blocks in treasure, 2 of which are guaranteed. First there's this one, then this one, which you can get from either the bottom like this, or from the top like this. The other two can be checked at the same time as this gold block by mining down like this. Some players choose to get these last two gold blocks as part of their standard route, and a few get all of them, but lots of runners do just stick to the basic ones. On the chests. There are 2 single chests and a double chest in the lower rooms to loot. These are generally all the chests you're going to get, so if you get rolled, it kind of just sucks to be you. There are more chests in the cube section, but they're pretty hard to find unless you know what you're doing, and if you don't have enough obsidian from the top chest, you should probably just reset at this point, honestly. Now that should be it for treasure, so it's time to move on to the final bastion, which is stables. This is stables. There are 3 ramparts at the top, which can either have 1 chest, 2 chests, or 3 chests each. They are completely independent of each other. Underneath the ramparts, there are 2 sections known as gaps, which can either be a good gap or a bad gap. Again, they're completely independent of anything else. There's also this single chest that always generates, which is a good way of quickly getting gold armor. There are chests in the stables part, which is the bottom part here, but they don't have the generic loot tables. Instead of obsidian, string, and such, they contain pork chop and crimson blocks, things like that. There are 2 ways of routing stables. First, good gap, and second, triple chests. I'll start with good gap. Your first potential good gap is up these stairs and to the right. You can tell if it's good by looking at this wall here. If there's this weird block out of place, then it's a bad gap, otherwise it's a good gap. To get in, you can just mine in like this. If you don't have armor, you should pillar up 2 like this temporarily so piglins don't absolutely massacre you as you're mining in. If you want to, before mining in, you can punch a pig from higher up on the stairs or even the middle rampart to get more piglins. Then you can pillar up like this and let them in. You should practice this first. Once you're down here, you can follow this clip to get all the gold blocks and piglins efficiently. Make sure that this block, which is always missing, is surrounded by blocks like this. When you block yourself here, make sure no piglins can access you. The other spot for a good gap is up these stairs. To check for it, mine this block. If there's air, it's a good gap, and if there's a block, it's a bad gap. This route is basically the same. Mine in like this, punch a pig from here if you want, and once you get down to this area, the route is exactly the same. So that's the gap route. The other route is triple chest. Triple chest is very fast and probably is the fastest route in the game. The issue is that you only get 4 gold blocks. Gap, like most routes, gets a lot more than this, and triple chest is pretty unreliable in this manner. To perform it, look for a triple chest like this. You can identify them from the bottom by looking at this. Make your way to this area here. If you're starting at the top, you can do it like this. From the bottom, you can do it like this. If there are piglins chasing you, make sure you block yourself off here. Next, mine this gold block and block yourself in like this. Then you can make this hole, break these blocks, and let all the piglins in. These 4 gold blocks are the only ones you're going to get. Once you have them, head to the top and loot these chests. You might need to loot the chests of the other ramparts too. Once that's done, you can come back to your piglins and yeah, that's it. Actually, that's not it, as there are some variations of triple chests that you should definitely know about. First is the standard double triple chest. If you see 2 of them next to each other, when you're first coming down here, mine into the other one like this. If you need to, make a path for the piglins. Then do the route as normal. Once you have your 4 gold blocks, you can head over here and get 4 more, keeping in mind that you should block yourself in like this to avoid stray piglins being annoying. This route is a lot more consistent, and I would say it's the best stables route. Unfortunately, it's not too common to be able to use it compared to the first 2 routes. Lastly, there's Divorce Triple. That's when the 2 triple chests are on the sides and separated by something, making the normal double triple chest route impossible. This is a bit of a headache throughout, but what I would do is make my first hole, get to the other side, get the gold blocks, and try to come back to your hole without, dying. Some players prefer to just make 2 holes, one at each triple chest, so you should experiment with what you like best. Now that should be all the Bastion routes out there that you should know. Once again, make sure you practice these before attempting them in runs. I'll leave the Bastion practice map in the description, as well as some other important links. Alright, that's it for me today. I hope you learned something. Next video, we'll go over the rest of the Nether. See you all next time.